Good evening, and welcome to tonight's RPG Think Tank. This week it's all about the end of the world, and we have some special guests joining us. We have Dave Alsop and Jared Earl, both of them from Nightfall Games. Dave was one of the founders of SLA Industries, founders of Nightfall and published SLA Industries. He's written for all sorts of people, but he's possibly best known as a freelance artist and produced art for Magic the Gathering, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder, World of Warcraft. His art is fantastic. Do go and check it out. Also there on the same mic is Jared Earl. Jared also co-founder, and also there at the beginning was Anne Boylan. This was back in the 90s, and after he worked as a mail order troll for Games Workshop, has done all sorts of things, doing consultancy with Wizards of the Coast, and nowadays does IT consulting and more work on SLA Industries. I'm pronouncing that wrong. It's Slay Industries, isn't it? Yes, it's meant to be pronounced. Yes, oh dear. Well, that's a great start. Joining us as normal is the 66 team. Everyone wave. That's it. We're going to dive in with the check-ins with Mark. So, Mark, would you like to run us through some check-ins?
Yeah, sure thing. I'll break the tradition and start myself this time. So, reasonably good week, fairly busy. We've had some trouble with a couple of projects, and I think from yesterday's data collection at National Physical Laboratories, we found out what's finally wrong. So next week I should have that fixed. On the more relevant 66 front, James and I have just started doing the bestiary. So this is the final pass through that, reviewing the monsters and getting all their text and powers right. So that's started pretty well. A few weeks' time we should have the vast majority of that done. So I'm looking forward to getting that done. So, as is custom, I'm going to pass over to somebody else to ask them how their week went. I'm going to start with Patrick. How was your week?
Of course you are. You caught me with my cup of tea. I always listen to your week and think you're doing so much more important stuff than me. But I can now officially say I have a new job because I've put in my resignation at work. So, yay me. It's a lot more hours than I was working before, so I'm going to be very, very happy with that. You pass on.
Okay, cool. I was going to ask what your new job is, but if you're happy to hand over, then
Not retail.
Josh. Cool. Well, as long as it enables you to do what you want to do, that's a great thing. So, Josh, have you got a new job?
No, I'm still at my same old job. And you know how I said last week how it's getting a little less? No, just got busy again. On the more relevant side, to copy your format, we've had some feedback of Chris for 66 Galaxy. Me and Alex are currently taking into account changes, and in fact we have a meeting with Chris on Monday to discuss further business shenanigans. In fact, Maya's my partner in crime now. He's finally joined us. Other than that, cold. It is so cold this week, I'm now wearing 3 layers on my torso.
Oh, okay, you're up in the frozen north, aren't you? That's it. Okay, James, you're in the sunny south. I'm going to go far, far away very soon.
Yes, far, far away. My day basically has been boxes. That's how I would describe my day. Boxes arrived. I filled the boxes with my possessions. Turns out volume is a greater problem than mass. Ultimately, I filled them all before I went over my weight limit. In more relevant stuff, as Mark was saying, we've got stuck a bit further on in our 66 Hellenic stuff, and we're busy working our way through various creatures. We're basically trying to make them as unpleasant as possible, because this is ancient Greece, and nothing was nice in ancient Greece whatsoever. Work-wise, yeah, fusion still hasn't happened. We think we've narrowed it down. There aren't enough quarks.
Okay, fair dues. We'll leave that. Take on some of our special guests. Jared, how's your week been?
A week's been busy as always, but at the moment we've been doing, because Dave and I have been getting together recently to do loads of stuff. The week has been, Dave has been working on Hunter Sheet's Red Alert. He's been doing a big, huge source book, but from time to time he jumps between that and does a much nicer Hunter Sheet's Red Alert. I'm working on Manchine book as well. Those should be out fairly soon. But I've also been scanning old copies of the rule books to try to get them back in print, because Karma and Slay have been out of print since years because we've just gone PDF for everything. But apparently people want them in print. And the other thing we've been doing is, ready for Christmas, T-shirts. We can't go into too much detail on that just yet because that's what we're here this weekend for. Just getting some new T-shirts done. And today's Dave's birthday, so everyone should wish him a happy birthday as well. You want to say anything, Dave?
Yeah, I'm 24 today.
24 now.
Just looking as good as ever. Yeah, that's about it.
And we're in the proper frozen north. We're north of the wall here. Yeah. Right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's about us.
Okay, fair dues. Well, glad to hear that. I hope the T-shirt stuff goes well. We'll keep an eye out for that when it comes available. Emily, how about you? No T-shirts, but what else have you been crafting?
I have been crafting. I'm currently working on orders for little ruby slippers. I accidentally took one into work, and now I've got orders for 5 of them. 5 pairs of them. Apart from that, I've been having lots of arguments with my scanner this week, trying to scan in some more of the Cthulhu work for 66 Lovecraft, and I've got the red lines of death running through everything I scan. So it looks like I've got a new scanner on my Christmas list. Hopefully.
Okay, well, it's sad to hear about the scanner packing up. What are the tiny shoes for? Are they for babies or cats or what?
I don't know. Someone asked me to make tiny felt shoes, and then everyone wanted tiny felt shoes.
Okay, fair enough. We'll just accept that as the truth. Chris, do you want tiny felt shoes?
No, I don't, oddly enough. I'm not a tiny felt shoe person. Well, that's my public persona anyway. So my week, yes, I've been working on the 66 power tools, getting them ready for public consumption. It's proving the 66 side of things, our back-end system is a doddle to work with, but getting JavaScript to do things like drag and drop and that sort of stuff has proven to be a lot harder than anticipated. So a bit of a delay, but we are getting there. Hopefully next week I'll be able to show them to people.
Okay, good. We're looking forward to that. I'm going to finally try with Alex. Come in Moscow. This is London. Can you hear us?
I'm having massive technical problems.
That'll be a no.
No, I can hear you just about. I can't. My camera has decided to, I don't know, walk away. So that my week does seem to have ended. Back work from having a week away all day and doing astronomy research and the 66 gallery, really.
Okay, cool. I think I got some of that. You do sound like a sort of bad early 90s synthesizer. Okay, we'll go with that. So we're going to hand back out to Chris to get into the main event of what we're doing today, brainstorming about the end of the world. Cheerful stuff.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, the end of the world, post-apocalyptic gaming. This is a personal favourite of mine. Having been a teenager in the early 80s, the idea that we're all going to die in a nuclear holocaust was, well, we all accepted it as the gospel truth and consequently put it into our role-playing games. I played an awful lot of Aftermath and Twilight 2000 and the Morrow Project back then. And very much of that era, the games were all about pretty much nuclear war, something similar destroying the world. What we want to look at this week on the brainstorming, though, is modern ideas for the end of the world. We're in the 21st century now. We can destroy the world in a whole new ways. So what we're going to do is go around the group and we're just going to throw in an idea for the end of the world and talk about it as a sort of role-playing scenario. How will it work? What will the characters be doing? Those sorts of questions. So we're going to start with our guests, Jared and Dave. Now they've taken the end of the world in an interesting and possibly terrifying direction. Dave, Jared, tell us about the end of the world.
Okay, do you want to start with...
No, yeah,
well, first off, are we going with the game concept that we were talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, well, first off, a disclaimer. I'm not sure if anybody in the gaming industry has already come up with this idea and gone, oh no, this has already been released under this title, so I don't know. But our idea was very popular most of the time is the Call of Cthulhu game. And our idea was to have a game that is set when the deep ones have risen and the great old ones have taken over the earth, when the stars are finally right, there's the great conjunction.
And the
everything.
players and investigators finally lose, and
Yep.
Cthulhu rises, and then suddenly, here you are.
Because it's going to happen anyway. I mean, that's the whole thing with the Call of Cthulhu, is you're only postponing the inevitable. So our idea was a game that is sort of Walking Dead, sort of The Road,
Yeah.
with, instead of zombies or the infected, it's going to be the cult of Dagon and deep ones.
Hounds of Tinderloss.
Yeah, basically the creatures that have had to kind of exist in remote places and under rocks and under the sea finally are given over to Earth, which is actually it's quite like The Mist.
Yeah,
I think. That's
and the
like-
Mist as well.
Yeah, The Mist is kind of follows this, but it was trying to come up with ideas that could extend beyond just. One thing I've noticed about a lot of post-apocalyptic films and stories is most people have a great fascination with it right at the beginning of its viewership. The problem is it's all about that trying to find out what's happened, what's the reason. and
Why
how-
is the apocalypse?
yeah. And what happens is after about 4 or 5 episodes of a TV show, it starts to it starts to deaden and soften, because you're just going, right, okay, we're now used to them looking for food. They've killed some zombies, or they've shot them in the head. Now what?
Now it becomes a soap opera.
Now it becomes a soap
Let's
opera.
deal with
because-
the romantic implications
Yeah.
of these two people being lost in the wilderness
You know,
forever now.
And that's why most of these stories follow this very set pattern of man wakes up from sleep
Yep.
and
And it's-
doesn't know what's going on.
The standard fish out of water, where you have to deal with
Yeah.
you as the viewers or the players learn what happened and how the disaster has come along by following a character who has awoken or whatever and doesn't know what happened. So you're learning with him, and it's a very simple storytelling technique. But
Yeah, so if you're developing a story idea around something like this, you've got your initial idea and it's exciting, but how do you keep up that kind of level of excitement 2 sessions in, 3 sessions in, where the players have gotten past the excitement of breaking into the rundown supermarket that's full of like biokeys, and then you're trying to get tins of beans into a tray while these creatures stalk around looking for you.
and British players running around saying, "How do I get a gun?"
Yes, where do I get a gun from? So it was trying to come up with the idea of like, well, you'll still have to have some kind of humanity within it, and a kind of a recognizable foe. And that's why we thought that one of the major things in the Call of Cthulhu setting is the cults that serve the deep ones, that serve Cthulhu or Nyarlathotep. And I like the idea that possibly their thing is that they set up the churches. So whatever is left of humanity, they have to bow before the cult. So you'd have the road, but the next episode could be Name of the Rose, where you've got these far-flung monasteries that have insane, ugly men in robes that are trying to recreate society, but it's a society based on these beings that now exist in the world.
And Patrick has suggested conflicting entities as well.
Yeah, well,
And
we
would be
thought
one of
that-
it. Certain continents have fallen to certain elders,
Yeah.
and only one of them can really rule the planet.
Yeah, so you could have ones that have like, if it's, what's the one? Is it Ithaqua? Is it the No, it's the Wendigo styled creature that picks you up and drags you off. So if anyone's reading this, I can't remember how it's pronounced, but it's kind of meant to be the howling, icy creature, and that could have taken over Canada, the whole of Canada. Or you could have the whole South Seas tropics is completely controlled by Cthulhu. You could have another creature that is taken over.
Yog-Sothoth has Australia.
Or one that has the whole of Russia.
Yeah.
And while there might be alliances, a lot of it will fall to who's taking over. What I did think a way of kind of controlling the idea is to say the game at this moment would focus around just the great old ones, but things like the greater gods have not been brought back. You might get Nyarlathotep within the setting, but you would not get Nagurath.
Yep.
You wouldn't get Azathoth. You would not get like Yog-Sothoth. It will just be the kind of kaiju-like creatures that will have mashed together like 14 tower blocks to create a throne, and just sit, while there's a vortex above them, and they'll just sit going, right, now you all worship me. Or they are now trying to bring forth the cosmic principles.
And the thing is there is an inevitability about the world when everything will fall. You are not going to survive this. It is going to be the end of the world. The world has already ended. You're just watching the death throes. And you're going to have to move from place to place, because when somewhere goes completely sour, you have to get out.
The other idea is, if the GM, I mean, that's what I've found lately as I've tried to develop game ideas, is to try and give the GM different world options of how you want to run the game. If you want to run it like, say, The Road, Cormac McCarthy's The Road, this feels amazingly bleak, that there is no hope, that there's no great resolution at the end, that the world's never going to be set to right. But then you could have an idea that you do like 28 Days Later, where the infection just runs its course and there is a sort of remotely happy ending. So you could run this as just a pure survival game, or that now that has settled and now the Great Old Ones have taken over the Earth, how do you kind of put them back into their death sleep? How do you put them back out of the world? And I thought that maybe the only weakness they have is that in order to stay awake, you must have worship. Because why else would they be here? Like, because they could just destroy the whole of humanity and that would be it. So in order to get more gameplay, it could be your enemies is alive now and it is walking there, but the actual immediate enemy is the high priest of Hasta. That's and you have to go into this new ruined city and become part of the sect, and then slowly try and take it out from within. Or you could just have it where you're the Mad Max, you're the wanderer of the waste, just trying to find shotgun shells. So
I think you hit the nail on the head with saying that the problem with survival stuff is that the unrelenting drag of foraging for food and stuff makes lousy TV after the second or third week. Or play. So you have to have those elements which give the GM lots of things they can throw against the players.
Yes. The thing is, you have to have that kind of communication, because one thing that I think is good within the newer Walking Dead stuff is it kind of is now trying to address that. There's one episode where you just have them go into this house and they're looking around for food, and they just all stop to eat. I think it's dog food. And they're all just sat there, and there's no dialogue. They've now gotten to a point where they're so used to this particular way of life, they don't raise their eyebrows when they kill a zombie, and they'll all just sit down and start picking at a comb or checking their shotgun shells, and you get that feeling that the lead guy, whatever his name is, Rick Grimes, kind of recognises that the people are surviving, but they're also losing all humanity. They're just becoming robots.
The new normal is no longer... Really.
It's that difference between surviving and living, isn't it?
So I would have imagined that setting like this, you would have the Great Fall, and then it would slowly, over decades, slip into an almost medieval, feudal setting, which is what happened in the film Threads. That Threads goes through several cycles after the bomb drops on Sheffield, and then it goes from just the radioactive waste killing off all the main characters, and then it fast forwards a couple of years when the child is a baby, and then another 10 years, and it slowly the language breaks down. The people, apart from the clothes they're wearing, it could have been set in the 11th century. Because they're using horse and carts. They're using, and I think with the Cthulhu setting is that, or Cthulhu Games, I think somebody coined it there. I think it would not become like Cthulhu Tech where you get more modern. It would definitely go back. There's no electricity. We're reduced to the new Dark Age, where everything is just constantly going upwards to worship the Great Old One that is within your continent.
Okay, I think that sounds fantastic. I know Pat's dying to jump into this. Pat is writing the 66 Lovecraft book, so I suspect Pat has got some thoughts on this. Pat?
Well, I do. I apologise for saying anything about this because I had to quickly rush away to look after M for a second there. But yeah, I was thinking about. Well, you said conflicting entities. You could have your characters actually play as servants of those particular entities. If you've got two conflicting guys, it might be, oh yeah, Cthulhu's on our side, but now we have to go and dice with, I don't know, Hasta. Just name at random.
It's almost sort of realm of chaos. Sort of, you're worshipping Slanesh or Nurgle, or I think it was Arthur was if you had that, it's what would your gameplay be like? Would it be because obviously the cult is always described in the books as these sort of horrifying, heinous acts that they perform under the gibbous moon with the frog beings, and it's like players are like, do I have to have sex with the fish guy?
Frog flashlight.
Yes. So it's kind of like, I don't need to get into bed with these things, do I? So, but I suppose that's another angle: is do you want to play it on the side of evil, or do you want to play it opposing evil? And I think that's trying to create player options, because we have that in Slay, where you have characters that either want to fight Slay or work in company.
Yeah.
So sorry, but continue. Sorry.
Yeah, Jay. I think you had a question on this.
Yeah, I just we're thinking about the key thing on any of these apocalypse is that you've got to work out what the players will do next. And the nice idea you've got about yours, where essentially if you have the elder ones have risen and they are essentially fighting each other for what that's of humanity because they need the belief or they desire the belief, then you can have interesting on the humans can work out, well, how do we now survive? Do we beg for the protection of our feudal demon lord, or do we try and strike out on our own and form the remnant of some humanitarian surviving nation? So I think it's got plenty of potential there, definitely.
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Okay. Any Pat? Noticed you got something to jump in with?
Oh, it was nothing. I was just going to say. You mentioned Slay Industries. My take on Slay Industries has always been you're kind of forced to obey evil, even though your characters might not be bad. So that works perfectly well for this kind of thing as well.
It's a common theme that we sort of run home to.
It's kind of watching when I was a kid. It was Robin of Sherwood in the 80s, and when I only ever saw dribs and drabs of it as a kid, but when I actually watched it as an adult, I was actually quite taken aback at the end that well, spoilers, sorry, but he's actually killed. Robin Hood's actually just taken down. And I remember reading an interview with Richard Carpenter, I think it's Richard Carpenter, saying that if you're going to be an outlaw, you're going to die, because the force that you're fighting against will continue in some shape or form, that you can keep fighting it, but eventually it will destroy you. Like Ned Kelly, or if you're going to be the rebel, then it's going to come down against you. Which I think is also very true of Call of Cthulhu, is that you'll never ever beat Cthulhu.
Yeah.
You might manage to put him back to sleep, but he's always going to come back. I think if you do kill his body, he turns into a gas cloud, and then
And one of the famous quotes in Delta Green was, "What happens if you nuke Cthulhu?" And the answer is, of course, he comes back only now he's radioactive.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, I always love that quote. Right, I think that's enough absolute terror, and we'll go to equally terrifying variant of the end of the world. Mark, you have a very different idea of the end.
Yeah, so what I've gone for is the concept of a black hole flyby. So a black hole has gone past our solar system, so a small undetected one. It's not been attached to another solar system, so we've not been able to see it. It's flown by, and it hasn't consumed any planets or anything by itself, but its gravity has upset the order of the solar system, which has then essentially scattered the solar system. The sun itself has been flung up out of the galactic plane. And then the disorder created is kind of round a couple of planets together, but also Earth itself has been flung out of the sun's orbit. And so what we have is, as we go on, the sun is just slowly receding further and further and further into the sky. And the Earth just gets colder and colder and colder. So it shares thematically a similar kind of thing to what you were talking about with your Cthulhu one, where ultimately you are going to die. All life will end. That's basically it. But it's a question of how long you can survive for, and also how are you going to do that. In terms of how humanity would survive, the major thing becomes how you get hold of energy. A big rush for fast breeder reactors to make use of the nuclear fuel we have, or fusion, in order to get energy, in order to run lights, in order to plants to grow crops. That kind of thing suddenly becomes something that's absolutely essential if the species is going to survive. But there's no society left to support those efforts. So you can have small patches of organised people in bunkers who are still trying to push this stuff. But for the most part, you're going to have a lot of people who are just surviving on the outside. Basically, just surviving on the outside of the world. So I'd written up a little bit about how it originally happened, where essentially nothing particularly dramatic happened on Earth. No one got thrown around, no buildings fell over due to the gravity, but the Earth was just flung out of its orbit and it starts moving further and further away. The big change, which really affected Earth first, was the fact that the Moon's orbit also got changed, which then fundamentally affects the nature of the tides. So basically in a very sort of high elliptical orbit, so suddenly instead of tides being harvested, they suddenly become floods. Daily massive floods thrown back and forth, and it's destroyed ecosystems, destroyed economies, and all sorts. And James has just raised a point here about player goals, which is something I was going to go on to next. You can play it in different ways. I mean, there's one way you could be the people on the outside of the bunkers, the people who are scrabbling about trying to find some way of surviving or trying to get into these places. And the people in the bunkers can actually serve as your antagonists. Because you can say it's essentially they're the elite. They're the people who were able to seal themselves away. Why should they live and why should we not? Why are we stuck outside? Let's get into there and take what they have. Is one way you could play it. You could try and create a new society outside, or you could be the people on the inside, desperately trying to have to go out into the world in order to find the things they need in order to build the solution to the problem. That's kind of what that was what I'd had so far, but I wanted to go with something different. It is essentially climate fails, everybody dies in the cold kind of scenario, and you can reach that through, for example, anything along the lines of climate shutdown, day after tomorrow kind of situation. That's the kind of thing you're after. Jared, again, question: can life be saved? Yes, it can fundamentally. I mean, the process of just keeping life alive, you can do it if you can get enough heat and if you get enough lights together from some other power source, be that underground, from volcanic heat, be that fusion or something. You can sustain life, but you'll never be able to put the world back to how it was. So it's got that sort of very endless, depressing line. It will just eventually go dark.
Yeah, I mean, my first thought when I read your thing was that death is unavoidable. That actually would be quite interesting. Playing in a scenario where really, why are people surviving? So that would be an interesting thing. Jared, you have a question on this.
Sorry, I had to mute button. Yeah, mute button was playing up there. Yeah, a question: can you leave Earth? Would it be possible to?
Depends on when we set it. I mean, if you put it sufficiently late, or if you start off with the players in some bunker where they've got, say, they're the crew of a nuclear missile silo, and one of the things they can do is, right, can we turn this thing into a spaceship, and can we go off to somewhere else? Or something that Pat says there is the space station campaign. You're already out there. How else are you going to do things? Because something you write into the setting says that maybe another planet is available. Perhaps Mars was pushed inwards and is now in kind of in the friendly zone, where perhaps you could try and colonize Mars or get onto there as an alternative. There's a question then of achieving that as players. And in terms of the plots, again, I mean, the first thing that strikes to my mind is going out and find all the stuff. And get the bits you need to make your space rocket work so you can go colonize Mars. Or other bits as well where you're trying to work out, well, how are we going to do that? Who are we going to choose? Because we can't get everybody off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that classic question of who survives, who gets to choose who survives, is at the heart of an awful lot of post-apocalyptic things. Jared, some thoughts on how that might be done or how society might evolve?
I think that the first thing that would happen is people would look after themselves, especially.
Yeah.
And the worst thing about that is that the people who are the most selfish, the Randians, the total, I've got a nice excuse for the selfishness. They are the actually best suited to survive in that sort of situation, which isn't very promising because it means being a dick works. But it does mean that your players will have to work out whether or not they are of the dickish variety or if they are actually normal human beings who are then trying to get this going. And if the world is just slowing, everything's just getting worse and worse as the day goes on, how do you then come back from that? Because every day, in an apocalypse like this, every day will be worse than the one before. Every day is another day closer to entropy.
It's not like a month. I think that we watched a program that's on Netflix called Doomsday Preppers, and it's fascinating because what you get from many of the people watching it is they can't wait. They really want the world to end because they've spent so much money on this, on guns, on dried foods and canning machines. But what they tend to forget is, you're going to have fun for about 4 months feeling like you're
the king of the castle.
You're the king of the castle, but what happens when you start to miss going to Walmart? When you're going to start missing a can of Dr. Pepper? Or, or
vegging in front of the telly.
Yeah.
Because that's gone.
Yeah, you've no more Daily Show, okay?
Yeah.
No more Jon Stewart,
No Fox News in there.
Yeah. I think that's that's kind of interesting.
So how do you deal? How do you make that into something that players would actually turn up to a game session and go, do you know what? I can't wait to find out.
Find out exactly how we die.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the challenges of that of writing that kind of setting is really writing, as you say, the adventures and coming up with stuff that you can really do and actually have some sense of winning, because people are going to have to want to play the game, and as it's currently written, it doesn't push them towards that. But I don't know, it was an idea.
I think it's a great idea. I think it would make a good sort of short campaign, maybe 6-8 week campaign. I don't think it's a game where you can keep coming back and doing again and again or having different takes on it because it's just too depressing. Okay, right. That's Death by Black Hole. Now we're going to go over to Emily, who has a very different take on the apocalypse and one I really like. Emily.
Hi. Yeah, this one's very different. Basically based on teenagers who think they know everything until everything's taken away. In the setting, on a day in March, on 2/35, all adults over the age of 18 died. Just dropped dead. And it's kind of like a teenager how to survive, but do they really? I mean, they've got no teachers, no scientists, no doctors, no one running the power stations. So it's just kids are left. The meta game for this would be that an alien invasion is taking place, which the first wave was to kill all adults, and now they're settling on Earth. So one by one, all the older children are going to be being picked off one by one. So the idea I had for campaign-wise was that you would be a group of 15-year-olds trying to struggle to survive in this strange new world you have. When you've got kind of gangs of feral kids running around, you've got older teenagers forming gangs and trying to form some new authority. So a bit like kind of a whole world version of, I've forgotten the name of that book. With the kids on the island.
Lord of the Flies.
Yes, a worldwide World of the Flies.
I love this idea. I mean, the thing which struck me about it is that you're going to play very low-skilled characters because your 15-year-old doesn't actually know that much and certainly doesn't have that much survival skills. So I could imagine that combat would be very slow because everyone would be crap at it. Even if you got your hands on your AK, you'd be like those child warriors, just sort of like blasting away wildly and never hitting anything. So I like that. I mean, would you see it as just as a game, as a product? Would you see it as a game for adults or a game for teenagers?
I'm not too sure. Like, I think it'd be an interesting game for teenagers because it is a game about forced growing up. and also kind of what morals you would take. One interesting mechanic I did think of would be that you would start with lower level skills, and the more skills you increased, the actual more on the aliens' radar you'd become.
Oh, so you got that trade-off. Yeah, you don't want to attract the aliens' attention. I think I like that, because I have to say that when you introduced the idea of the aliens, I slightly went off for setting. I like the idea that it was completely unexplained. Everybody dropped dead, but actually, if you've got that metagame with the kids are aware of the aliens and sort of have to factor in what they do and don't want to draw the aliens become a boogeyman. They almost never have to appear on screen. They're just your classic boogeyman. Jared, or Dave, it's hard to tell, you have some thoughts on this?
One thing that I was just saying to, I bet Jared, I don't know if Jared typed this, but kids are so reliant on the internet to tell them everything. They want to know what films coming out, they go on the internet. They want to know how to do a campfire, they'll go on the internet. And
we have actually neutered a lot of our...
Yeah. But you could have it that when this actually happens, the internet goes down as well. So they can't communicate with each other in the way that they're used to. They can't just go on Facebook.
Adults run the internet, so I mean, who turns the servers on?
It's just like on Facebook, but oh my god, the end of the world, all the parents are dead.
Yeah. And you've
Please
also,
like this post, you know.
And you've also got the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is essentially people are too stupid to know how stupid they are. Now, the Dunning-Kruger effect, it's on Wikipedia, you can have a look at it. It's effectively clever people know their limits and stupid people don't. And kids think they're better at things. They'll think they'll be able to pick up an AK-47, rack it, and then shoot, and then everything will work exactly how it looks in the movies because they've been lied to their entire lives. But the moment they actually try to do it, the reality suddenly hits them on the side of the head, or more like in the face as their gun bashes back into their face. But they all think that, of course, we'll be the ones to survive. I'm clever.
Yeah.
Everyone's stupid, especially when they're under 18. I was really...
The other danger as well is that because at that age as well, it's a removal of restraint.
Yeah.
There's no laws. So they now have complete freedom to do whatever they want. There's nobody to tell them what to do. And that can either, when they find their humanity or they find their responsibility, or it can actually go the completely opposite way. Yeah. And they're like, oh man, this is like Fallout 3. Awesome. I get to go and kill people or beat people up and nobody will stop me.
Because they haven't learned a moral centre yet.
Yeah.
They're still developing their morals in and out, and they don't know whether or not they should be doing things. Like playground fights are where you learn to restrain yourself, where you learn that, actually, no, I can't hit people. That's not a good idea. If you don't grow up properly, you never learn that, and people will just...
There was a comment on IMDb by this guy who had this great concept of how he was going to survive Walking Dead. He was going to break into the Chicago Museum and get a suit of plate armor, go outside, and he was going to hit every zombie in the head with an axe, like a big medieval axe. And he said that this is how it was going to work. And I was sitting there thinking, going, right, one, this is Louisiana, okay, so it's going to be unbelievably hot. So within minutes, you're going to be absolutely perspiring, dragging around this armor. And I was going, so you're going to hit every single one of them in the head. What happens to the ones that grab your back and then grab your arm, and then suddenly you're pulled to the ground, and you'll just have to slowly wait as you're
like Joshua says,
as you're slowly just dragged to the ground, and then waiting for these zombies to peel through this armor the best they can, and then eat you alive. But to this kid, as he's writing this, he's going, yeah, this is awesome. They'll never get through the armor, and it's like, yeah, but they'll.
I can imagine you actually starving to death in the suit of armor. You know, you've got part of the zombies on you who can't get at you, but you can't get away. I mean, it was interesting you touched on the morality of, the game, how it, what it teaches the kids, and that's the thing about young adults. And what I always love about young adult books is there is that moral. They teach you morals. A good young adult book teaches you ideas and concepts and how the society functions. And I think, you've got real potential in that idea of doing a young adult role-playing game. Josh, you've got some quick thoughts on this?
It's basically something on bouncing off something you said earlier about the aliens not really turning up and being some kind of boogeyman. What if you make one of the few times an alien actually turns up to be the most terrifying concept ever? This is something you cannot fight. It's something you cannot stop. But it may be only there for one person. Do you chuck out that person so the whole group can survive, or do you try and take down an alien?
That's just sorry, Chris. So there was a film a few years ago about an alien invasion taking place in kind of like an urban. I don't know if anyone remembers what film that was. But yeah, it's kind of an idea of do you leave? That's the one. And is that kind of like, do teenagers have the morals to understand self-sacrifice, or actually try and take on something they're so terrified of? But no, it isn't actually like, my idea would be something you literally, like Chris said, like a boogeyman. You'd hear stories about something taking people away. So any encounters would be very quick and very harsh. So they would have to be very clever players to try and figure out a quick kind of way to escape.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be sort of like a real dark undertone to the book, and I really like that. So multi-level, so you've got the survival aspect, and then you've got the aliens underneath that. I think that's a brilliant idea. Okay, we are out of time. This has been, we have loads more ideas. Everyone chipped in at least one idea, and we haven't got to people. So I suspect we're going to be doing another End of the World brainstorming session fairly soon. So we're going to wrap up the meeting with the pluses and deltas. Jay, you're running that this week. Take us through it.
That I am, Chris, because you have told me that I am, and that's what I'm now going to do. So starting from the top of the list. Oh, no, let's go down the page, James, and start off. We're doing Josh. What did you like and what did you not like about the meeting?
I like the fact this is a very, very interesting topic. It's certainly one of my favourite topics. Plenty of great ideas. Deltas, we got so many more ideas we need to get through. Something I want to bring up about note-taking was only just occurred to me. If the person who's note-taking is speaking, they can't really take notes down. I think it might be worth in future meetings implementing a sub-note-taker. So while the note-taker is actually speaking and they're unable to take notes, the sub-note-taker can temporarily take over for a few seconds until the person returns to doing their actual job.
Yep, cool. Indeed. Yeah, it's probably not a bad idea. Emily, I'm assuming your delta is going to be your illness, but what's your plus?
Plus, yeah, a bit of fangirling over Slay Industries, getting to talk to David and Jared. And yeah, it's actually really nice having some like guests on the meetings rather than us usual rabble. And yeah, deltas, nausea is not fun.
Yes, it is very much not fun whatsoever. Mark, on the topic of nausea, pluses and deltas?
Not feeling sick, actually, so I have no pluses or deltas regarding nausea. Apart from the fact I'm not feeling sick, therefore that's a plus. Pluses, big collection of new ideas, new people to talk to. People have got a lot of more experience in writing this stuff than we have. It's good to hear their points of view and the way they go about thinking about this kind of stuff. Deltas, nothing much really, apart from the fact the more I talked about mine, the worse it sounded.
I'm going to take that to mean that the worse the situation sounded rather than the worse the idea sounded. I still think the idea is interesting.
Okay, you do that.
I will do. Pat, you're next.
Well, my delta was Mark's idea. No, it's alright. My delta is that nausea exists. So mine is related to nausea. And my plus is there. Lots of enthusiasm this week. A lot more enthusiasm than we normally get. Even, I mean, we're always pretty good, but everybody just wanted to talk. So, lots of stuff coming out. So yeah, that would be mine.
Cool. Jared and/or Dave, you're next. Give me something that you liked about the meeting, and something you didn't, or something you would like.
Lovely talk. It's usually just Jared and I just yelling at each other
in the pub,
most of the time, or talk to people online. So it's nice to sort of listen to people's voices and actually have a bit of communication. That was good. Deltas, I'm 43 now.
Yeah, happy birthday, Dave.
Yeah, damn it, I'm old. But as far as this meeting went, I don't have any.
No, it's great. do have problems with my mic mute button doesn't automatically mute it
Yeah.
when it should, which is a bit annoying. So I had to use one on the screen, which meant my reactions weren't as fast as they should have been when muting and unmuting. But hey,
Yeah,
Yeah.
these things happen. Pat has a particular thing. He keeps forgetting which of the mute buttons he's picked, and then there's a moment where he just does this, and then he remembers. Alex, technologically, are you with us?
So Delta is massive technical issues, and I have no idea what's going on this end.
Okay.
But plus is it was someone from outside physics in me again, just so we have another perspective on this. So from what I was able to hear, it sounded good.
Okay, cool, Grad. I'm just going to assume that was you had fun good, because I didn't get much of that whatsoever. I'm going to go next, and then I'm probably going to hand over to Chris because he's going to do the next bit after. So, Chris, after do your pluses and deltas, we'll go straight on from there. So, my pluses, it's really good to get guests in and get them involved so we can hear some ideas from veterans from the industry. It's also interesting that you guys bringing in much more the idea of narratives from other stories and bits and pieces, the narrative you're reading and things. Deltas, I didn't get to talk nearly as much as I normally do. Chris, you're next.
I shall resist the temptation to make my plus for the fact that Jay didn't get to talk nearly as much, and I will move swiftly over that one. But my plus is actually going to be, obviously having Dave and Jared here is fantastic, particularly Jared, who I gamed with when we were 16, 17, and apart from one brief encounter in sort of like the mid-90s, I haven't spoken to since. So it's great to get a chance to speak to you again, Jared. We will have to do it again soon. My delta is we just had so many fantastic ideas. We really could have made this a 2-hour meeting and still run out of time. So yeah, I think we're definitely going to have a sequel to this. So that's all the pluses and deltas. All we are left to do is to wrap up. A big thank you to Nightfall Games in the shape of Dave and Jared. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for sharing your ideas with us. They are fantastic. We will post the text of the ideas on the blog and also on the YouTube channel, so you can read through it at your leisure. And please feel free to chuck in your own comments and keep the discussion going. We like the end of the world, so we want to hear everybody's ideas on it. And on that subject, don't forget to subscribe. We do this pretty much every week, and so if you subscribe, you won't miss it. So that's it for the end of the world. We're back next week, unless the world ends. So until then, goodbye.